Crazy.
Who knew we would be live at 2 a.m. tonight, Eastern time? Welcome in, West Coast. I'm sure you're still up. Celtics fans who hung in there. We did it ourselves. So Josue, Bobby, we are live right now. Believe it or not.
Takeover. Let's go.
John heeded Josue's advice once that alarm went off and hit the pillow. So it is possible. It's possible right now, and I think it's actually more than likely that John Zannis, certainly Jimmy Toscano, and I believe Sherrod as well, though who knows, have no idea that this trade happened.
Well, they're going to wake up to a hell of a surprise, man. This is crazy. Mid-season deal, this type of deal?
I thought there was no way.
And I don't mean it as I predicted this. I mean it as, what did I say about the Phoenix Suns? I mean, you get one big piece like this, everything changes, you know? They had to be in the sweepstakes. They had to put the name in there. And they won. They won the prize. This is insane, man. The Suns, this team, look, they gave up their best defensive player, but there's still plenty there, right, Bobby? I mean, we'll get into it, but man, insane. What a breaking news. This is it. This is it. This is the trade of the deadline for sure, man.
Yeah, biggest trade in the NBA in a long time. And it went down, I think Woj reported it at 1:05 Eastern. Suns acquiring Kevin Durant, who nobody knew was available. I think many speculated. Stephen A. Smith, of course, first among them, that he'd be on the move. And the Suns end up sending Mikal Bridges, an excellent young defensive forward, a defensive player of the year caliber player last year who can also score. Cam Johnson, obviously one of the better 3-and-D guys in the league. Jay Crowder, who was sat out all season in search of a trade, moves in this deal. 4 unprotected first-round picks. Believe they're unprotected. Unprotected. 23, 25, 27, 29. 28 swaps, so 5 firsts in total. Suns get back Durant and TJ Warren, who actually started his career with the Suns. So he heads back to Phoenix, a great scorer and, in his day, defender as well. So where do you start with this, Josue? Oh, having some mic issues.
Is this a championship team? I mean, you can start there.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that's where we can start. Is this the championship favorite now, Phoenix?
I mean, you have to still include Denver. LA's interesting, but right now it's between them and Denver, if you ask me.
Championship. You're going to throw Boston in there, too.
Oh, no, I mean to win the West. Oh, are you talking them all together?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're... Yeah, you have to keep Denver in there, but you're talking about Paul, Booker, Durant. You have a new West favorite, I think. Denver can feasibly compete when they're fully healthy, I'd say. And there's depth's an obvious issue here in Phoenix now. You're going to throw Warren in the mix, that's important. But you're looking at a bench of Jock Lawndale, Ish Wainwright, Damian Lee, the other Lee, Saban Lee. It's a thin team now, Landry Shamet. And, I don't even know who's going to start at the 5 for them. Well, Ayton at the 5, but who their 5th starter will be. You got Paul, Booker, Durant, Ayton, and then maybe Damian Lee or Shamet if you're going a little on the small side. I don't know. It's a thin team, but it's a no-brainer, right? Going and doing this, trading your future. Paul's window's short. You get the best big 3 in the NBA right now. And you get Durant, who's as good as anybody. I'm stunned that he moved before the deadline.
I think it goes to show you just where Brooklyn's at right now. I mean, they're like, look, we can't salvage this thing, I guess, or at least they must have had talks about it. And Durant said, look, if that's the best deal and you guys are able to pull it off, then I'm sure he's down to go to Phoenix. I mean, look what was waiting for him. This is a super team now.
So what happened? That's where I'm at too. Brooklyn felt like they made that Kyrie trade, getting Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith to continue to compete, to entice Durant to stay. They had Durant signed through 2026. I don't know what changed. You obviously didn't hear from Durant. I don't think he was probably thrilled that they stripped him of his star that he came to play with in Brooklyn. And I'm sure once the opportunity arose for the Suns to make a huge offer,
Right.
that maybe both sides came together and said, this is the best path forward for everyone. Maybe the Suns put the pressure on and said, we'll give this to you now, but not later. It's not an offer that blows me away, and I'm still trying to figure out this DeAndre Ayton thing, why he's not in here. When you want DeAndre Ayton, if you're the Nets in this deal, it felt like that would be obvious, but they get Cam Johnson instead. Ton of picks. Maybe they had their pick between picks and Ayton. Maybe Ayton vetoed it. I know Ayton had veto power, so maybe he wouldn't have accepted a trade to the Nets. But I'm stunned that Ayton's not in here if it was possible to move him there.
Yeah, I think there was some sort of yeah. We got something here from Ahmed, our producer here. Yeah, I think it was the contract he signed, maybe. But that would have been a lot, though. I mean, you don't think this is a lot? This is probably Phoenix's absolute best offer without sacrificing Booker or Paul, right? Or
Yeah, and our was Ayton a designated rookie scale player? I guess no, because he signed in free agency with the Pacers, and I don't want to get caught up in this, but we'll figure it out. One of the cap things, it's possible that Simmons and Ayton couldn't have played together on the roster, but you know what? Send Simmons to the Spurs if you can go get an Ayton, or whoever would have taken him, the Jazz. You got all these first round picks to play with here. Maybe you send one or two with them, and then you go get you're rebuilding. So hey, get the best players possible for your future. If you like Ayton more than Simmons, figure it out. But evidently they like Johnson, they like Bridges, and they like this package that they got. Or they just said, this is the best we can make of this situation, and here we are. But it makes you second guess, I guess, trading Kyrie and putting your foot down on that. The fact that you lose Durant in short order after, and you really don't end up with a roster that looks all that great after, or a future.
Right. And I can't help but not to sound like most Celtics fans, but did the Celtics really break the Nets? Like, was it that loss that really just made everything crystal clear as to where their limitations were in improving the roster and just where they were mentally? And they just, I don't know. I feel like obviously the dominoes fell. The first one was Kyrie, but I wonder just how far they got into thinking maybe they could save this thing, or was it really just Kyrie asking for a trade and Durant said, "Hey, you already know. Like, if you can do it, let's do it. If not, I'm not feeling this whole thing right now. I'm not. I don't like it here. Maybe we'll know the whole story one day. But yeah, I just feel like the Nets realized their limitations, and it was probably that one domino in Kyrie asking for a trade that just started everything here. And here we are.
And interestingly enough, the timing of it all, Kyrie got to the podium tonight. And did the Mavs end up winning that game? I didn't catch the end of it, obviously. We were at the Garden, but Mavs and Clippers played. Kyrie hits the podium, gets asked about Durant going to the Suns, and he said he's glad he's out of there, Kyrie said. It's not the first time we'll be in competition as brothers. I'm just praying for his happiness. We just cared about seeing each other in places that we can thrive together or apart. I'm just glad he got out of there, as I said.
The Mavs won, by the way, 110 and 104.
So Kyrie reacts, said they talked a lot about their futures throughout the year. Who knows how much they talked throughout the season about getting out of there. And maybe a plan came together. We know how far they plan to head to join each other in Brooklyn after leaving Boston in Kyrie's case. Maybe they talked after that suspension about this might not be the place for us anymore. And that put in motion a plan potentially to get out of there by the trade deadline, together or apart. Because remember, the Suns were in on Kyrie Irving and were willing to trade Chris Paul for it. And you get that report after that said, all right, maybe teams aren't putting their best foot forward for Irving because they're thinking about Durant, and who else but the Suns. So maybe the Suns go to the Nets a few days ago and say, we'll send you Paul, and maybe we'll make this a bigger trade for Irving and Durant. And maybe at that point, the Nets still had hope that they could make Durant stay. They pivot to the Mavericks and send him there and say, oh, Kyrie's gone. You're not going to be able to go to Phoenix with him. And Durant said, who cares? I still want to go there. And I still want to be out of here. And at that point, they said,
Which I think was the more realistic prediction, right? Because I remember people were thinking, oh, well,
because remember how surprised we were that Paul was available for Irving?
Yeah, but how true is that? I mean, yeah, maybe.
If you're the Suns, you keep Irving and Durant together for years to come.
Do you though? I mean, after you've seen what you just saw, like that's why I thought that part of it was just one is tricky for any team to take on those two big contracts like that to try to facilitate a trade. But I also think it's just difficult to take those two together and say, okay, well, this is what we want. I feel like most organizations or teams are down for one or the other. I would have been really surprised if these guys were still teammates after the trade deadline. But here we are. I mean,
well,
this Suns team, though, I can't wait to watch them.
Kyrie singing Durant's praises. I mean, you might have a better fit in Paul and Durant together. Mid-range guys. They obviously both can create their own shot, but Paul is so much more of a passer than Kyrie was. That fit's super intriguing. Other reports coming out tonight, and I do want to get to the Celtics. Everybody's burning question with the Celtics, which is, of course, what we'll wrap with tonight. But other stuff floating around. Toronto's talks on forward OG Anunoby are rolling into the final hours of the deadline. The landing of Kevin Durant could escalate Anunoby's value among Western Conference teams pursuing an elite forward to defend Durant. Doesn't that sound like the Raptors trying to pump up OG's value? Who needs an OG to defend Durant? I know you guys do. This stuff's so funny. But what ended up actually not being posturing, or maybe it was, before we get to the Durant but to Boston question and whether that could have been possible here. Don't have a lower third for it.
I don't think so, man. I don't know.
Jakob Poeltl traded to the Raptors for a 2024 protected pick.
Right after we recorded our segment, too. We talked about him a lot.
Yeah, I know. That was obviously the guy we've been focused on for a while here. I have no reporting on this, but I have to imagine that the Celtics were talking to the Spurs about Poeltl, probably haggling over price, and this might have been a situation where maybe the Celtics were trying to get him for the low, and then the Raptors were like, the Spurs were like, well, we have the Raptors here, they're offering this and that, and maybe the Celtics were like, this is our offer, this is it, take it or leave it, and the Spurs maybe pivoted to the Raptors at that point. But I think every Celtics fan is going to look at this and say, you couldn't do a first in 2 seconds to go get him. And I forget which player they traded to make the money work. But Jakob Poeltl, a Raptor, when the Raptors looked like they were about to be rebuilding here, which is really surprising.
Yeah, no, it is. It's especially, a player like
that. Kem Birch was the player.
Kem Birch, I was going to say. Who was it? The guard. Yeah, you wonder if the Celtics could have gotten in the mix there, but was Brad willing to do that? 2 seconds in the first sounds like something that he would pull the trigger on, but maybe he wasn't quite there yet. Or maybe there wasn't the pieces that they wanted in someone like Payne.
Yeah, and trying to see what the protections on that pick were. It was a protected first rounder that they sent. I'm sure people in the chat have all this stuff lined up before we even do. Remember, we're just getting in from TD Garden. All this news got flowing here. Anyhow, Josue's got work in the morning. We're not going to go too long here. So let's get to the question everyone's going to ask. The Suns are NBA title favorites, or certainly competitors for the title. Looking back now, would you have thought about getting in on Kevin Durant now that we know he was available, that we know the Celtics had the ability to surpass that offer, looking at it with a Jaylen Brown, with future picks, with maybe another throw-in salary like a Gallinari or a Pritchard or whatever guys you would have fit in there, Grant, potentially. Would you have done it?
Nah, probably not. Probably not. I mean, it's easy to say that now, but you only make this type of shakeup as if you're going through a crisis. And the Celtics are far from that, right? Phoenix needed to do this. That's why that was one of the teams I thought of right away when Kyrie asked for a trade. Just for any team that's looking to make a difference, make a splash, that's going to change their team in a way that they could have never done it. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't going to happen organically down in Phoenix, and they knew they needed someone. I mean, Chris Paul's not getting any younger. Booker's been banged up. Now this changes everything. It rejuvenates the team. It rejuvenates the culture, the squad. I know there was a lot of reports saying that there might have been a little tension going on in that locker room. Well, I think this fixes it. This fixes it, especially guys like Booker and Chris Paul who have just been trying to get back to the finals. It was starting to look like they really are not going to have a chance to do that. And here now they do. So I just think the Celtics, if you're this, looking at how everything played out, you're sticking with your guns. You're sticking with with what you've built up until this point, right? Off that trip to the NBA Finals. I mean, this should motivate these guys, and it's tough to see. It's tough not. I mean, it's going to be tough to see this team not completely healthy for quite a bit. Jaylen Brown, Rob, Al, these guys have been in and out of the lineup. Marcus, we haven't seen in a while, so they're going to have to battle through this adversity. But if you're the Celtics, you're knowing on the other side of that, you're going to come out much stronger than you were, a month ago or so. I mean, that's what history has told us up until this point, right? In their progression this year, it's big. So to answer your question in long form, man, no, I don't think you do that. Again, that's something you do if there's something really bad going on in the team, in the locker room, and there hasn't been any signs of that.
I'm with you, but not as emphatically as you seem to be on it.
It applies pressure on these guys. I mean, we can't deny that for sure. It does, but let's see what they made of.
Yeah, and we'll see what they do by tomorrow afternoon. Maybe they think that they need to do something now to keep up with this.
Yeah,
with this move.
The front office. This is pressure on the front office for sure too. Yeah, you're right.
And your biggest threats are still in the East because the Suns have to get out of the West. They're gonna have competition out there. I think they're the favorite. I think they will get out of the West with this team they have now. They've done it already with this core. Yeah. They went to the finals 2 years ago, and now they have Kevin Durant on top of it. So, Suns are West favorites to me. You get there, you get to the finals. You got Smart to guard Paul. You got Derek White and a bunch of guys in your backcourt that can go after Devin Booker as well as your wings. You obviously got Tatum and Brown to guard Durant, and then you like your ability to guard Ayton. Like Ayton doesn't terrify me, so I think you're a favorite in that series. But I think it's a series, and
oh man, that could be a classic.
If well, think about a West Finals too between Kyrie and Durant. There's so many funny possibilities now. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's in the cards. That could happen.
Of course, I'm gonna do the 2020 thing. You get to the finals, you win, you're thrilled you didn't do it because you have this long window and you can play with Brown and Tatum and kick this into the future. Of course, you have your All-NBA hopes for Brown too that you hope you can keep them.
But Bobby, if it goes the other way.
But if it goes the other way, what's the first thing we're gonna say? You could have had Durant. It was right there. Put your chips on the table and make yourself bar none the championship favorite. And it was a tough decision. I get it. You're the 1 seed. You're in perfect position right now with what you have to get it done. You know what you have, the chemistry.
The best scoring duo in the NBA. You got
a young scoring duo, and you're ready to sign Brown.
Right.
But do you get the Brown deal done? Do you win the championship this year? All these questions we're going to ask next summer. And look who is here. We couldn't rule him out. Wow, right on time.
Hey.
I wasn't asleep. I just had my phone off and I missed it.
You just missed this whole thing like the last hour?
What were you doing? Watching The Last of Us?
I was just watching TV and just hanging out, and I just wasn't on my phone, and I'm still freaking awake.
The last episode was fine, but yeah, go ahead.
Look at this. We got 600 and growing in the room. We just hit it, John.
How long have you guys been on?
20 minutes.
20 minutes? Yeah.
And you just came in at a perfect time, John, because I'm going to ask you. This is the question everybody wants to know. Josue says no. He wouldn't have done it.
No.
I'm going to waffle and sit in the middle and say maybe. Would you have done this?
We're going to play this in June, so
you got to come up with what the equivalent package is.
So let's say
Brown is a much higher target than is a much like bigger piece than Bridges.
Yeah.
If Bridges is a centerpiece player, then the pick revolves. Then the the package revolves around the picks. What I'm surprised with is that Brooklyn is kind of taking that step back into rebuild mode, taking on a bunch of future firsts. I thought they were trying really hard to stay relevant.
Here's your package.
Yeah.
Brown, White, Grant or Gallinari, whichever way you want to go there, because they do throw in a Cam Johnson in that deal too, who's valuable, as well as a Jay Crowder, who they could maybe flip. So I guess the equivalent of a Crowder would be a Gallinari. So let's just say Brown.
Cam Johnson is Grant.
Brown, well, White or Grant, whichever one you want to pick. Probably White. Brown, White, Gallinari, and then how many first can you squeeze in?
Oh, the chat's back. That's good too. We didn't have that before.
How many first can you squeeze in? That's such a Bobby question. No. If Jalen's in the mix, less first. I mean, that's why they stacked up. What?
Well,
4?
I'm just trying to think of how many they can offer Josue. So they could have done a 24 swap, a 25 pick, a 26 swap, a 27 pick, and a 29 pick. So they could have offered 5, just like the Suns.
All of them?
Yeah.
But there's no Jalen in that. There's no All-Star in that package that they picked up from Phoenix, though. I don't know. All right.
Yeah, you're right. You're thrilled with Brown.
Let's throw that out there, John. You doing that? I don't know.
So look, I was always reluctant to give up way too many picks, but I would have done, and also I'm reluctant to give away. The Celtics don't have enough pieces to give away many pieces. So if it was Jalen and 2 players and picks,
it's expensive.
You're gutting yourself a lot. I always said I kind of drew the line at a single pick. Brown being again Durant level player.
Right.
I mean, again, you're talking about a legit all-star, all-NBA caliber player, a good bit higher than what most teams were offering. Even Ayton or any of the other things that were discussed before were a step down. There's no team offering a player of that caliber.
Jalen's caliber, that's what I mean. Right.
But then there's also the flight risk. So it's really difficult to say because, it's fine. Bridges is a good player. They got decent players back. But that deals about the picks as much as anything else. And some young pieces that they can kind of hang on to and stay competitive and give it a good go. But, I mean, that team's not a contender anymore. They're kind of wired,
I don't know what the hell they're doing.
They're nothing now. But, I mean, what makes perfect sense is they had their talk and it wasn't really reported. And this is where I always wondered how it would go. It didn't make sense that Durant would get traded unless Durant said, I want out. I do believe that he wanted it kept very quiet because he didn't want to take another hit to his reputation. I also think he had to be really okay with where he was going because this is his last ask out. What's he going to do? Demand to get traded at the deadline? Get traded, go somewhere, hate that place too, and be like, I want to get traded again. He's out of bullets. So, he had to want it, which means, he had to have gone to them and say, let's do this thing. So, again, you got to show me what the price is.
It would have been expensive. We can haggle over what it would have been, but it wouldn't have been 1 first, John.
Yeah.
You get 5 from Phoenix. Good value there. I wonder why Ayton's not in it. We're still trying to figure that out cap-wise. It might be a Rose Rule thing. I don't have a definitive answer on that yet, but you get a ton if you're the Nets here. I guess I understand why they finally were just like, all right, let's just not deal with the nonsense and just end this. It does make you wonder if they second-guess moving Irving. And as I was just saying to Josue, John, Josue, I know you got work in the morning. Jump whenever you want.
Now that you got freaking me, who doesn't sleep.
I was just telling Josue, John, doesn't it make sense now why they were offering Paul for Irving? Because they could have gotten Irving and Durant.
I honestly thought that was possible, and that's exactly what I thought. I'm like, when they were
really though, but you think they would do that?
So this was part of the plan. I know Kyrie didn't let on about it tonight.
Way more than they wanted Kyrie. I think that's what it was.
That's for real, but I think they could have. I think they viewed a world in which they did it.
They might have been plotting, John. After that suspension, they might have just been like, all right, where are we headed? And
I don't think so. I think it all
You don't think it was the
unraveled
big
because
L against the Celtics? I don't know.
no. It
Kyrie did say tonight, they asked him about the trade. He said, we were talking about our futures throughout the year and, what we see for ourselves.
I mean, it's not surprising in the sense that Kyrie wasn't given a contract and Durant asked out. So, I mean, they basically publicly said, I don't want to be here. That's not a surprise. None of it is. So,
yeah.
Whether or not they could scheme to get to their own, it's really hard to do that. They're not free agents. Like, can we both be shitty enough to get traded somewhere at the same time to the same team? Look, I don't know. It's expensive. I always wanted to me, the Brown thing was always one, a bit of a pipe dream. Two, just, you got to take your shot, but three, it's got to make sense. You can't kneecap yourself. You can't handicap your team. You're already taking a big risk if you make that trade because you're trading a player who is young and presumably has
Come
years.
on, John. You just went on for 2 days about why you wanted this.
Listen. What I'm saying is there's a limit because you're already taking risk by trading the younger player. You're already taking that risk. When you add too much to it, it just becomes ridiculous.
Well, yeah, that was my argument.
That's the point. You want it, but how far can you chase it? To me, it made sense if it was Jalen, one of the a guard or a Grant or something that you can live without, and a pick. When you start to say multiple picks, 3 picks and pick swaps, plus more core players, and you really got your roster and all of your future prospects for a guy who you're talking about a window of 2 to 3 years, you're really, really, really taking a large risk. So that's where I would say you have to draw a line. And if the line was multiple picks, multiple players, I was always a no on that. Even when I flipped on the idea of Brown for Durant, if that was the core, when that deal gets too big, you can't do it. I'm against it if it gets too big. It's just in an either or scenario. I do think people started to just literally look at the deal as I would never trade Brown for Durant. I only flopped on that. I would trade Brown for Durant, but not a massive deal where you're giving away too much. It doesn't make sense for the Celtics to do it. It would never have made sense.
Right.
That's my stance. Just to be clear on it. So
I think you were just baffled by how many people were just so against it. I think that's what it was too. Like, so many people are like, no, you don't want to trade for Durant. No.
Like I said, I was against it before at the start of the year, and I kind of changed my mind during the season. But again, it really only had to be Brown for Durant as at the meat of it all. When the deal gets too big, if you're the Celtics, it does make you worse. So it depends how much you would have had to give to make it happen. And they don't have a lot. They would literally. They don't have enough first-round picks. You literally almost have to give away all of your picks all the way to the San Antonio one, which, in terms of...
I was just going to say, you could offer 5 here with swaps.
Which is just an insane amount. And so, like, you're doing 2 things at once. You're closing your contention window and making it impossible to reload on the fly. So you can't do it. You couldn't do that.
Let's be clear here. The Nets saw a straightforward opportunity to get picks from a team that they almost for certain know will be out of contention by the back end of that deal. Like sometimes you're like, all right, it'll be good if they can, fall apart, and we'll be like
old,
the Rock.
You're Paul, you're Durant, you're getting older, and they just gutted a bit of some of the younger players.
It's almost certain that the Suns by the end of this deal will have disbanded or declined. So that makes it understandable from Brooklyn's perspective, especially when they get this many picks. I mean, it is the most all-in trade I've ever seen from Phoenix's perspective, but you understand it because they haven't been good this year. How scary are they to you?
I gotta look closely here. What's left over here. So what are you looking at? Durant and Booker, obviously, with Ayton.
Durant, Booker, Warren, Paul, Ayton.
Paul.
With an okay bench, kind of a scrap heap of guys who have played okay for them.
Warren's a good pickup for these guys.
I mean, look at it this way. I mean, they're really good, but what are you looking at? You're looking at a super pairing of. of two
Big three.
players, a big three if you're counting Paul among that. It's a really good team. We were talking about the Kyrie Irving stuff. This is the bite from Kyrie when he was talking about, he was asked after the game what his thoughts on the trade were, and here's what he had to say. And you know what I hate about this? I hate that Kyrie gets a last laugh on the Nets as much as anything. Here's Kyrie.
Well, it's not the first time we'll be in competition as brothers.
Look how happy he looks.
I'm just praying for his happiness and praying for his well-being. We had a lot of conversations throughout the year of, what our futures were going to look like. There was still a level of uncertainty, but we just cared about seeing each other be places that we can thrive, and whether that be together or whether that be apart. There's never been one moment where I felt like he's been angry at me for decisions I've made, or I've been angry at him. We've just tried to understand each other a lot better and grow as human beings, grow as brothers. His business changes so quickly. He's getting a little bit older. I'm getting a little bit older. I just love the competition now that we can be in the same conference, and I welcome all that. Get to see him a little bit more, probably playing against Phoenix a lot more, and that's what I'm looking forward to. Everything else in between, I just am glad that he got out of there.
Glad he got out of there. What a friggin' clown. Words.
He'll get to see him a lot more. They'll be in the same It wasn't like they were teammates.
Yeah, right.
Oh man,
It
I don't know,
sucks.
John.
Kyrie wins.
No,
Kyrie wins. Kyrie wins. That's annoying.
Right. There's no it's unfortunate we couldn't make it work. There's none of that. It's like, oh well, we got out of there, so it's good. It's a good thing. But I'm not surprised. He's moved on. That's just what Kyrie does.
I think they had a plan, John. Maybe not that they were going to end up in the same destination, but we have the escape valve of the deadline. Well, let's put this in motion. Well, once Durant gets hurt too, maybe the doubt creeps in, and that was right after the they went on that 18-2 stretch. Remember, right after Irving got back from the suspension.
When Vaughn took over.
Yeah, so they had a run there where it looked like they could do something, but maybe once Durant goes down, some doubts started creeping for both of them, and maybe they had some conversations. Who knows? We'll figure that out all in due time. But very formidable Phoenix team. I think it's a team the Celtics can beat. I think it's a team that's no sure shot to get out of the West, though I think they're the favorites now. You got Denver. You got Golden State can't be ruled out healthy. It's going to be a bloodbath out West now. It makes the West a lot more fun. I'll also say, Kyrie, a bucket hat guy. I'm just kind of piecing that together. Not a bad look.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say to that. I guess so. I've never seen him like that.
Yeah, so take the Nets out of the East.
You guys got something in common. There you go.
Take the Nets out of the East. Talking Bucks, Celtics, and we'll see with the 76ers. Couldn't beat the Celtics with Cornette and Griffin out there tonight. I don't feel great about them.
Yeah, I mean, the story here is
Cavs.
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what happens out West. Because, again, you're talking a small chance, not a small chance. Even if the Celtics get there, by that point, are you worried about the opponent? You're not.
No, you were more worried about the Nets figuring it out, and they almost did.
And they almost did. But, I mean, as far as the East goes, you just weakened a team that, as of 2 weeks ago, looked to be one of the top contenders to take you out. And then you're looking at the Bucks, who are now on a little bit of a streak and rolling after kind of, a month or so of inconsistent play like the Celtics have endured. And Philly, who you just beat without literally anybody. So East definitely gets weakened when you remove two top players from them and send them out West. I think it makes the Celtics path easier here in the East. And that's the goal, right? You get to the finals, and then who gives a crap who you play? I don't think you're ever looking at oh my God, that team is too good, situation out there.
Once it gets to super team status, you kind of do, and that's where they are now. They're going to be really good. I think they're a step above the rest of the West. Ayton's, you get the good Ayton or the bad Ayton.
It's a really freaking good team when Ayton's your fourth best player and you don't really have to worry too much about him. So yeah, right. I mean it's a good team.
I can't wait to watch them.
And
Mavericks obviously look great tonight.
It's all in. Yeah.
What can the Celtics do now? Poeltl off the table.
So, do you guys get
Crowder off the table? Josue was a Crowder guy.
And I'm not gonna lie, that was the thing.
You think he stays in Brooklyn? I don't know.
See.
We'll see. Yeah.
That was the thing that I saw first. Is the Poeltl thing when you were like, "Oh, our segment is done," and that's literally when I stopped paying attention to my phone. And like 5 minutes later, Durant was traded, and I missed it all. So yeah.
Yeah, I was driving. Josue was on the train. So yeah, Poeltl traded to Toronto. I was telling Josue, seems to me like a situation. Again, this isn't reporting either. I'm not reporting on any of this. It just happened. It seems to me a lot of talk of Raptors Celtics, right? And we said, is this just posturing from the Spurs to get these teams to pay up? Like, oh, the Raptors are interested, and oh, the Celtics. I wonder if the Raptors were leverage on the Celtics, and that the Celtics were talking to the Spurs and saying, all right, we'll give you this, like, low balling, trying to get Poeltl for as low as they could. And the Spurs are saying back, well, we got the Raptors. And maybe it was kind of that situation that happened with the Jazz, the Knicks, and the Cavs on Mitchell, where the Knicks are just kind of sitting back saying, sure, the Cavs are going to trade for Mitchell. And then they do. But the Celtics just kind of sitting back here saying, oh, all right, Raptors, yeah, 10th place in the East. They're going to go get a big man. And then they do. Because the price here isn't big. Kem Birch, 2024 protected first rounder. I don't know the protections on it. And a couple second rounders. Would you have done a 2025 protected, couple second rounders, and Gallinari and Pritchard?
What's the final price on Poeltl?
Yeah.
Protected 20. Oh, wait, what?
The trade pick, right? Yeah.
It was a 2024 protected first. I don't know the protections. A couple seconds, and Kem Birch.
So it's about the picks.
Yeah.
A lot of picks.
Amazing.
Huh?
The picks weren't amazing. I'm sure that's a heavily protected 24. We'll see, though. I'm going to actually look for that right now.
Yeah, I don't know.
The picks are not amazing, but there's Celtics picks are an amazing.
That's the thing, yeah. And I feel like Brad's like, do we really want to put them all into this basket? I don't know. That's tough. It's a tough decision.
If anyone in the chat knows those protections on the Raptors picks, don't hesitate to speak up. I'm not seeing them. I guess we'll have to wait.
The whole point was this: the Celtics were trying to acquire Poeltl for players without the first rounder. You think, and then the what you were talking about was whether you'd be also willing to throw in a first rounder if you had to, and that's kind of where I think people were hung up there. Are you giving away another first rounder and players for what's insurance and a guy who's a flight risk after the season, or who you have to pay a lot of money to? Lottery protected, somebody says here, but I don't know. I mean, again, let's do the flip of it. What's the Ken Birch equivalent of the Celtics?
Gallinari and Pritchard.
Yeah,
you think that's fair?
Yeah. I mean, Birch is a fine player. Maybe the Spurs can flip him for a second or keep him or a couple seconds. Solid center, solid rotation center. The Raptors like them, but nothing crazy.
No, he's not even really in their rotation, is he?
I haven't watched a lot of the Raptors recently.
I don't think he's playing more than 10 minutes. Let me see. He's 13.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Gallinari Pritchard's the equivalent. I keep seeing in the chat, Gallinari could have gone to the Spurs. We've settled that. But
yes, he was playing this year 8 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Last year 18 minutes a game. So he's not even in the rotation right now. No.
And so why do they do this? I think they thought they bought low on a really good player.
They obviously did, but it shows that all it took were picks.
Yeah, the market wasn't great because he's a free agent to be.
All it took were picks, so the Celtics basically probably get Poeltl for a first round pick if they want him. So then because again, Birch isn't really, you need the salary filler, whatever it is, to get you to Poeltl's 9.
Yep.
So I mean, honestly, Gallinari Pritchard, you could argue is more valuable certainly than the player that went back. And then a first, that's got to be what at this point? 2025 is the first one that you can give up there.
Yeah.
I have to think that the Spurs were pushing the Celtics. They said, we got the Raptors right here, and the Celtics are like, all right, sure. And then they do the deal because the Celtics didn't.
I don't know
put
what
up
Toronto's doing though. I mean, you can't tell if they're buyers or sellers, so I didn't quite get it.
I think they buy low on a really good player here, and it's probably some combination. I'm seeing
It's
a lot
not.
of
You're not spending a lot of capital here to get this player.
Yeah.
So
I think he would have really helped you.
I think so too.
Tough miss.
I think so too. But again, it helps more if you really have a plan to re-sign when you're doing it just for rentals and just for insurance. Given what we saw tonight with Rob and Al being out, not great. Not that I think that like kicked up the Poeltl alarm. Like maybe we should do this, and now it's off the table. So I mean, I guess what's left for us tomorrow? We got a trade deadline show tomorrow at 2:00. Is there anyone left to trade?
This is it.
OG Anunoby, he's out there. We haven't talked a lot about him as a Celtics guy. I think the price is just going to be way too high. So much competition. Can't picture that. We're talking Mo Bamba, Noel, like the buyout guys now. Crowder, keep an eye there, I guess. I don't think the Celtics' interest in Crowder is too high. Buyout, though, different story if he wants to come here. So,
that's what I think.
I think we're on the buyout, John. I don't know if the Celtics are going to be super active making trades tomorrow, especially when you have all their players post-game rallying to keep Grant and to keep Pritchard and stuff. I don't know how much they want to rock the locker room and trade future picks as well. The other potential explanation there, John, with the Poeltl deal is that the Celtics might have just looked at it and said, we don't, how you were saying earlier that you don't want to just keep stacking up first round picks and you already made your move for this year. Maybe they said, we don't want to trade a future first down the line when we're going to want to keep adding to this team year in and year out. Maybe it's not worth it to do that for Poeltl, who, again, rental probably for this team.
Again, the problem with the Celtics is, you can't pay $20 million for every player. You have to start adding other players somewhere along the way to keep this window going longer and longer. You feel pretty good about, obviously, your Tatum and Brown scenario, and you've got 3 guards under contract for 2 and 3 more years with those guys, and then you've got Rob locked up for another 4. So again, you don't know health wise there, but then you got to kind of build. You got to keep adding as you go there. Within 2 or 3 years, you're going to have to really replenish, and you can't be making your first picks ever at that 2 years from now, 3 years from now. You have to start bringing in some younger talent, cheaper talent, because again, every player you're talking about possibly bringing in or trading for, you're going to have to sign for 20 million or makes that kind of money. So you wonder how much they are looking a little bit ahead with some of these moves, and it makes sense. We're pretty freaking good now. And but we've also got to be concerned about, how we're going to look in a couple of years and 3 years from now and 4 years from now. So, I mean, that's what good GMs do. They don't always sell out for the now.
Right.
If you can sell out, look at it this way. This is why Phoenix can do what they did with the Jaylen Brown trade. The Celtics, with the Durant trade, the Celtics have to be giving up their second best asset and a young one in order to do that trade. Phoenix is giving up their third best asset. You can argue fourth even. So they and then future picks. If the Celtics had a Bridges equivalent to go with Tatum and Brown right now, then you could say, yup. Give that guy and all the picks. But you're giving up so much when you're giving up your second best player. Celtics just simply don't have it, and they've never really had the horses to make a deal, this type of deal for it.
No, they don't have a ton.
They don't have a ton. They have a great team. They have 2 star players and a great supporting cast around them, but they don't have that young 22, 23, not yet an alpha, but he could be, or whatever. They just don't have that. They don't have any of those guys. And that's where, again, missing on all of those drafts for all of those years is tough. If they had drafted a Maxey over a Neesmith and they've got that as your third guy right now, yeah, you can make a package around Maxey and for 3 first-round picks to go get us your third star. But they haven't had that. They never got it. And so all of those whiffs are the reason why you can't make that big trade, because Jalen's too far evolved. They basically needed
what Jalen. While all that was happening, these guys were evolving into superstars.
They were evolving into superstars. They tried this with Jalen when he was their 5th best player 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Jalen was that guy. He's not that guy anymore. Now Jalen's a star. So you're giving up a ton for marginal improvements, plus a ton of assets. It does make less and less sense when you start to add a lot of things to it, as it might have taken. I'm curious if Brooklyn would have looked at a deal with just the Celtics for, Brown and a single pick being good enough and the picks not being an issue, but I don't think so.
It's because we've talked about how they don't own their picks.
They don't own their picks. Yeah.
The only way where it made sense to rebuild was where you were getting bona fide picks from the Suns, where you look at them and say, by 2025 at the earliest, or at least 2026, this team probably stinks. And they're probably giving us premium picks by then. And we've talked about the Celtics have a long window here. Even if they're giving up their picks in 27, 29, Brown and Tatum might still be in Boston at that point. And it's more likely that they are than they aren't. So I guess it would be different in that case because it'd be Durant and Tatum, not Brown and Tatum. But still, Tatum's probably there by the end of that, which is a much different story than Devin Booker alone being in Phoenix. So, I guess this made sense for the Nets. I don't know what they're going to do now. You look at their roster, Finney-Smith, Dinwiddie, all these different random guys.
They're dead to me. Who cares about the Nets? We don't ever have to talk about the Nets again.
Well, no, maybe you talk to them about a deal tomorrow to get one of those guys. I haven't thought it through, but there might be some guys on that roster that could help you. A Seth Curry, Joe Harris is a little expensive, but, we'll see what happens. And I know Josue still likes the Crowder idea, so we'll see what happens.
Go get Bridges for more picks.
Bridges is really good.
If the Nets are really, really, really trying to dump, go get Bridges for more picks.
Ian Begley said the Nets were asking around about Simmons deals. Over the recent days.
No value there.
You want Simmons, John?
Anybody who will take Simmons from you is a good deal for the Nets.
Yeah, at this point, if you're Brooklyn, absolutely.
I can't believe that's what's left. I mean, my God, from that frigging Harden.
Simmons, Simmons, Finney-Smith, and Bridges. That's what Durant, Irving,
after I leave this, I'm going to go.
That should be the thumbnail for this show. That look.
After I leave this show, I'm going to go find every Brooklyn Nets post-game show I can find, because I just wonder how apoplectic they are right now.
I can't believe it. Are you stunned this happened, John? Because I am.
No, not stunned.
They could have held out, couldn't they?
Well, again, I believe what likely happened was when they had the reports were that they were talking and they were going to talk about their future. I think it's pretty clear that talk ended with KD saying, "I'm out." Right. It's just that part wasn't reported.
But he was going to sign off on it too, though. That's
because it was quiet. I thought it was possible. Right. I thought it was possible. They might have said, let's roll the year. Because like I said, the thing I thought with Durant was he's really only got one more out. And rather than go somewhere hastily, he might say, all right, guys, let's see if what you're doing here works. But it felt like he's like, I'm not buying. I don't think we're contenders. And you guys probably know we're not too. And Brooklyn's like, you're probably right. Let's just try to rebuild. So they went rebuild.
Remember.
Right. Crazy night.
Yeah. Remember, Durant's hurt, by the way, so he's not going to play for the Suns for a little while here. So, due time, we'll get Durant, Booker, Paul playing together, which is unbelievable. Suns. Finals 2 years ago, now the center of the West once again.
This is Chris Paul's greatest chance at a ring. Hands down. This is it this year.
And it feels like they were looking to maybe swap him out.
Yeah.
For Irving. Makes a lot more sense now that we see what happened.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it. Josue, if you needed to bail, you can bounce here. Bobby and I can put a bow on this.
Yeah, I'm gonna head out. Good
All right.
stuff. Good stuff,
Thanks
Bobby.
for
This
joining
call
us,
going live
Josue.
here. Appreciate you guys sticking with us. Still up. Look at this crowd we got. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Very
can
good.
keep it going a little longer here.
We can go a little more because I'm still getting my bearings. Thanks, Josue. We will be back tomorrow, like I said, trade deadline special with whoever is willing to join here. But yeah, I mean, in the meantime, Bobby, like I said, I'm still wrapping my head around it, and trying to formulate all of my thoughts. But like, I get it from Phoenix's perspective. It's bold, man. And it's probably
They
worth it
needed
because
to do it.
again,
They
you are
had no choice.
acquiring Kevin Durant for 4 years, for multiple years, it's real, this is a real thing. You've got a wide open championship window now for several years. I mean, I don't know how much Chris Paul, I'm not gonna say left in the tank. I don't know how much longer Chris Paul is a dominant player or one of the best point guards in the league, but he's still friggin' Chris Paul.
Well, that's why it makes some sense for them to look to beyond keeping Durant happy and, urging him even more to get to Phoenix, swapping out Paul for Irving because Irving's value is so low, and you're looking at
it's a
Paul's
real buy low. Yeah, it would have been a real
you-
buy low.
You're looking at Paul's contract the next couple of years, only 15.8 guaranteed next year, 30 if they keep him, and then the year after that completely non-guaranteed. Because there's an over 38 rule in the cap where if you sign a guy to a max deal who's going to be over 38 by the end of it, you front load it because you could hypothetically like backload a guy who's not going to be in the league anymore. So they dump the money on the front end. So they have outs with Paul.
Yep.
The next 2 years. So it made sense that they were going to look to get a younger guy, a guy who's in perfect tandem with Durant on everything, and they're tied at the hip. And then you have a core for years to come between Irving, Booker, and Durant. The thing is, at least for this year, I feel like the basketball fit for Durant's better with Paul. Paul's a great catch and shoot guy.
Yeah, I think so
He's
too.
a natural passer, so he's going to set up Durant. I mean, we were just talking about how great Paul would look on the Nets with Durant. We were stunned that the Nets didn't do that deal.
Yeah.
But it all makes sense now. And I really like the Suns team. You think of some of their bench pieces, Damian Lee, who can hit threes. Ish Wainwright, we just saw guard Tatum in a win. We saw Jock Landale really give the Celtics as a whole issues at the rim off their bench. And then you talk about a Saban Lee, who's been solid for them, and then Torrey Craig. So they have pieces. They have depth still. And then they get TJ Warren in this deal, which is almost like a sneaky bonus throw-in for all that they gave up. A starter-level guy who played for them, and I'm sure that they liked. I think they gave him up for like a second-round pick when they traded him to the Pacers years ago. So TJ Warren ends up back in Phoenix here, which is great for them. I mean, this no-brainer for Phoenix, even with all the risk, even with all the future considerations that you give up here. If you win one championship, it's worth it. The Suns have never won a championship in their franchise history.
Yep. And now they've got Isaiah Thomas and Kevin Durant, 2 Hall of Famers on board.
Is he officially in?
No.
No.
They came out and refuted that really quick. He has a business relationship with the new owner in a previous thing, so he's in like a kind of friend advisory role, or at least that's what they said. But funny story from earlier today.
Well, this is certainly a new owner making a splash too, with Ishbia taking over there.
Get me Kevin Durant at all costs. You do wonder. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. I think obviously, some intrigue removed from the Celtics and whatever possibilities they would have for tomorrow. I know Kevin Durant was always a bit of a pipe dream. I think the Celtics and anybody who was in favor of the Kevin Durant deal,
they probably thought about it, right?
I think anybody who was in favor of it, even if the Celtics were, really wanted it on their terms, and I think the Celtics did as well. I don't think the Celtics were ever desperate for Kevin Durant. I just think you had to ask, and that's probably what they did. Yeah.
Here's where that report comes from. That were just a speculation that Stephen A. threw out there, because I'm sure he did hear something.
Yeah.
Maybe from the Nets, and it would have made sense for the Nets to go to the Suns and be like, we could go get a Jaylen Brown and really use that as leverage, because that's what they did the last time, when they were shopping him around the league. Like, having that leverage point, a Brown possibility, was a huge, huge thing for them. And I think that's where a lot of the noise came from over the summer, because the Celtics were very adamant that they weren't going for it. And obviously there's nothing substantive that connected them to him this time. So I don't think it's any guys that got the haul that they did when they could go to the Suns and be like, all right, if you guys don't want to do this now, there's always the chance that Jaylen Brown could be available down the line in a deal for Durant. And that might have just been enough to get the Suns moving, or maybe the Suns put some pressure on the Nets and said, all right, this is a big, big offer we're giving you right now.
Yeah,
this might not be there over the summer.
I don't know if the Celtics were real. I guess, the more I think about this, the most perplexing component of all of this is I don't understand it from the Nets perspective. It's so confusing to do this 24, 48 hours apart.
Because I don't love the return for them.
But it's not just the return, it's the type of return. You made a stay competitive, win now trade for Kyrie, and then you made a let's blow it up and build for the future trade for Durant. If you had any inkling you might be trading Durant, why did you trade Irving for playable pieces? It makes no sense. You're right. If I were that, I'd be like, what do you guys want for Finney Smith? You want a first? I'll take it. I want wing depth. I'd be at this point, like, why make one trade to be competitive and another to be non-competitive?
Yeah, because looking back, you would have done the Lakers trade.
You would have done the Lakers trade. That's what I don't get. The reason you don't do the Lakers trade, they'd be in great shape if they did the Lakers. My God, you could be. I mean, you'd have to go through dark times, but you're talking about the first round picks of two teams whose windows will have expired by the time you're making those picks. You could have 2 lottery picks per year plus your own by then. Like, oh my goodness gracious, like, so strange to do one and not the other. I'm really confused by that. Again, I don't, from a Celtics perspective, we don't care deeply about that. But the most confusing thing to me is why one trade was one way and the other was the other.
Yeah, and where I
stand. I mean, obviously things changed. Irving wanted out. They tried to appease Durant. They made their trade. They're like, do you like it? And he's like, no, I want to go too.
So
and they're like,
that's where we talked about how satisfied he'd be seeing Finney Smith and Dinwiddie. Like, I looked at it and said, this is a great setup for him. Well, not a great one, but this is a manageable setup for him to close out the year and see what he can do with it. But there's never going to be a scenario where he came to Brooklyn to play with Irving and Harden, for that matter, and he looks around and sees Finney Smith, Dinwiddie, and Simmons. On top of that, like, we can't discount Simmons just being a complete zero this year and that failing entirely as a factor for Durant wanting to move on from this situation. And of course, now you get that report that they were looking to move on from Simmons in recent days. So maybe part of Durant's feedback here was, can you get anything for this Simmons guy? Because it's not going to work with him. And now they're stuck with him too, on top of all this other stuff that they have to figure out what they're doing with. There's no great piece now if you're the Nets moving forward. And they're very fortunate that pick with the Rockets this year is a swap, because it's not going to convey. The Rockets are dead last. Like, there's no chance that flips by the end of the year. So they keep their own pick this year. Next year it goes to the Rockets. And then maybe they're in good enough shape where that doesn't matter next year and they can reset. But maybe, they're about to pay the tax for this team. Big tax money for a team that's about to go nowhere.
I don't understand the trades back to back. You brought in players to help you today, and then the picks. So Durant must have just smoked them following that. They trade Kyrie and they say we're going to build. He must have flip-flopped like crazy, because to make that Kyrie, I guess not though, because they make the Kyrie trade and they tell him after. And they're like, look, we got you this stuff. And he's like, I don't like it. I want out too. So it really is perplexing. What are the trade rules there? You can turn around and trade the guys that they acquired, right? Yep. No problem. So, I mean, if I were them, and as you said, if I were the Celtics, I'd be looking at it.
There's something with combining them. Like, you might not be able to combine who'd they just acquire? Like a Crowder with a Joe Harris, for example. Like, I don't think you could combine a Crowder with anyone else. It might just have to be Crowder going to another team. So those are the restrictions, but flipping them to another team you can do right away.
But I mean, just look at their team now. They've got Crowder, Bridges, Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson, Royce O'Neal, Ben Simmons, and Watanabe, basically all fighting for how many minutes there? It's a really crowded mess.
Doesn't make sense. I was just kicking around. I don't even know what their starting lineup is. Like, you either leave Simmons out or you leave Cam Thomas out. That doesn't make sense with the way he's playing. Yeah, we're going to figure out a lot about what the Nets are doing over the next 12 hours here till the deadline.
It's amazing. It's so many different pieces. I'm so confused by
anything you want there.
I mean, like I said, I think Finney-Smith is exactly what they would need right now, because I've been a proponent of wing. And it all depends. If you think you can get buyout big, I would love to take a knock there, but that's going to cost you a first.
Yeah. Finney-Smith makes 12, so you could match him with Gallinari, Pritchard, and Jackson.
Yeah.
But the other thing is the Nets are a big tax team, so whatever money you're sending them, they actually have to consider. Like, they're not going to take a Jackson because it's big tax money for a guy that they just have to get rid of.
Yeah.
And then, Gallinari, of course, as well. Who, like, that's probably like $50 million in tax, Gallinari's contract, the way they're, in that repeater tax. That's the other thing. Their flexibility so hamstrung by their tax situation.
Yeah.
Their owner's head must be spinning at where they're at right now. And I know they set up, I know Marks just did this deal, but Marks can't be feeling too good about his future right now.
This is a mess. This whole situation is a mess. And no, I don't think he survives. So I don't know. I mean, there's other names out there, I guess, and again, you have to talk about how many other teams are going to be very active and how many other teams, and whether they have assets that can, blow yours out of the water. But I don't know. I mean, I still think there's deals to be made out there, but I think it's pretty clear that whatever the Celtics do, it is going to cost them a first-round pick, another one, and it's how bad you want whatever it is that's coming back.
Or you go for something small. I don't know what Chicago's going to do, but we've kicked around Javonte Green, who's obviously injured right now.
It's either small, but if you want anything that moves the needle, even right, you're trading a first-round pick.
Yeah, in that case, it's probably a second or two, maybe, in a deal like that. And what's left? What else have we kicked around? Like OG's not happening. Hart's obviously off the board. It's not a ton. I know Gary Washburn, like Terrence Ross, kind of an expensive option.
Everyone always talks about you can't do a trade deadline without talking about Ross. Yeah, who knows?
He's a buyout guy too, I think. Yeah, we'll see who shakes loose in that buyout market. That might be their approach. And again, didn't you say, John, they might go into this deadline and just have this price that they're throwing at everybody and saying take it or leave it? Like, that might have just been what happened with Poeltl.
Yeah. I've got these two guys in a second. Everyone's going to try to pry a first out of that deal. Then you have to determine whether the player you're going for you want bad enough.
I could see that. Yeah. Maybe they went to the Spurs and said Gallinari, Pritchard, and I think they have 3 seconds at their disposal, at least over the next few years. So maybe they said like 2 or 3 seconds, and that's our offer. And then the Raptors come through with a first. Not a great first, but a first nonetheless.
Yep. And that's it. There's always the John Collins discussion anytime you want to talk about it.
A little expensive.
He's expensive. He's $20+ million. But again, if you're not re-signing, if you're not going to go 16, 18 for Grant, John Collins is less expensive. You have to find a way to get to that salary there. But that's a name that always comes up. Someone just threw it in the chat. There's names out there. It's just how much are you willing to spend and how much are you willing to give up. The belief, most people think nothing, but there are other teams out there that are going to want to shed stuff. So you're just hoping you're there to collect once they do, and we'll see what comes out.
Yeah, for sure. And I see old friend Daniel Tice floating around the chat there. Hey, it's not the worst idea in the world, but what needs to happen is he needs to get traded to a different team that cuts him. If the Pacers just cut him, he can't come to the Celtics. So unlikely, I'd say. What a buzz.
Yep.
What a buzz. I wonder how many players.
Could the Celtics get Curry or Harris? Somebody is asking here.
Yeah, Curry, certainly. I think he makes about What's the number on him? They love their shooting too. I think his number's like 8 million or so. I'm getting the exact one right now. He is signed for 8.5 million and will be a free agent this offseason. I think it makes sense for the Nets to move him, and that's Gallinari and Pritchard again. But again, do the Nets want Gallinari and Pritchard? That's expensive guys to just take on in that case.
Yeah. Who knows? A lot to talk about. I guess we'll save some of it for 2:00. It's good that you guys were quick to get on here. I'm sorry I was late to the party, but I'm glad I did get to join in for the obvious massive breaking news of Kevin Durant being traded out of the Eastern Conference over to Phoenix in a massive swap here.
Hey, if there's early breaking news, you're gonna have to grab Jimmy because Josue and I put in our 12 hours here. So hopefully we'll be up in time for the next breaking news.
What about me? Who spells Zannis? That's what I want to know.
Hey, this is why they pay you the millions.
I got it. I'm gonna have kids crawling all over me in friggin' 4 hours. Okay, it's a fact. This is a fact of life.
All right, maybe we'll leave it to Jimmy and Nick.
So it is what it is. But thanks to everybody who jumped back on here. I know we got a lot of Australia in here too, which I love. But a lot of you diehards jumping in again with us after having watched the Garden Report post-game show. Pretty cool. Nice to see a lot of the names. Again, apologize. We didn't have that chat rolling in the first show, but I'm glad you guys to see what you guys Yep, Dirk's in here.
What a night. From the moment we stepped in the Garden tonight, Westbrook, Hart, Brown breaks his face. What else happened tonight? Griffin had a big comeback night. You get Durant.
Brown legitimately broke his face.
Kyrie makes his debut. Busy night in the league.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's going to continue tomorrow. They always talk about the dominoes. You can't get any bigger than these. Irving and Durant moving. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of activity tomorrow.
Yeah. Where's Jimmy? Jimmy's actually waking up soon. Wouldn't it be great if he woke up and just joined the show?
We're close. We almost got there.
This is good. Yeah, we almost got there. We are on East Coast time, so we are going to shut it down, and we do have to. But we thank all of you guys.
So the Suns made this trade. I guess that's why it went down at 1 a.m., right?
Yeah, they can do that. A lot of stuff happened. You got to stay up. You got to stay alert, right? So, again, Bobby and Josue, obviously on top of everything, getting us going here with the live stream. Thank you guys. Thank Amit, who's frigging, our super producer. Been running all day long doing stuff. He also jumped on here to help produce the show for us. So thank you again to Amit for sure, and everybody involved in all of this stuff. Tim Shields earlier. Yep. Thanks, guys. We'll be back tomorrow, 2:00 with the stream, unless, of course, there's breaking news. If there's breaking news, whoever's awake will jump on one of these streams. I guarantee it. Okay. But let's wrap it up. All good, Bob?
Yep.
Good night, all.